one of the most horrific things you can do.
His life was taken in a senseless and brutal manner.
Horrific crimes left unsolved.
You know, you have a lot of different scenarios run through your head. Could it be this person? Could it be that person?
And families forever changed.
I was 13 when my mom passed away.
Just come and tell me what happened to my son. That's all I want to know.
We're sharing these stories hoping you can help us solve this unfinished business.
Any cold case can be solved. No one's perfect.
We're exploring the chilling disappearance of Bonnie Dages and her infant son, who've been missing since 1993. Join us as we sit down with the family who've searched for answers and the truth behind this haunting cold case that's remained a mystery for over 30 years.
Well, first and foremost, I want to thank the Dages family for being here with us today, and our cold case investigator, Dan Bendig. Thank you all for being here to discuss a case that has remained unsolved for 30 years, a case very close to your hearts, involving your sister, your daughter, Bonnie Lee, and her 4-month-old son at the time, Jeremy. Before we talk about their disappearance, though, can you tell me about growing up with her as a child, the memories that you have of her?
She was our first child, and so there's like probably 1 million pictures of her. And if you see any of them, you see most of the time she's smiling in all those pictures. You know, she was real happy when she was young, and there's a lot of siblings, and you see that she's in, playing with them. They were pretty close when they were young, and we have a lot of memories of, like the Easter, the holidays together. We'd go up to North Carolina a lot for Christmas and see the rest of the family and all. But she was also a very stubborn little girl. When it came to school, she didn't want to do her homework, and it was always a trial, and that was her attitude through the rest of school. She was very smart. She was in all gifted classes, and did a lot of other things on the side. She was in the chorus. She was on the swim team in high school, played in the band, and
she loved horses.
Riding the horses since she was tiny. Well, we had horses, so she was on a horse and riding from about the time she was 1 year old, or maybe a little older. But she was tiny, when we put her up there and had her started and all, and the riding the horse was the passion all through her life.
So safe to say she was very happy, very loved.
Yeah, and unfortunately, as she got older, a side we didn't know about, that led to a lot of things that happened to her later. But she got involved with an older gentleman from down the road who basically became her pimp and led her into a lot of things. But unfortunately, we didn't know what was going on until after she disappeared.
And that time in her life, as things started to shift, started to change, she met this man that you were talking about. The day that you found out she was missing, can you take me back to that day, what you remember, the emotions that you felt?
I was at work, and my husband called me and asked if I had seen Bonnie, because every now and then I worked at McDonald's and she would go through the drive-thru and say hi. And he asked if I had seen her, and I said no. And he said, I don't think he told me exactly anything then, but then he called back later. And the people that she was working for, she hadn't shown up for work. And they were looking for her, and they had come to our house and asked my husband. So he said no, he hadn't seen her. He called me, I hadn't seen her. And then they came back again a little later and explained to him that she hadn't showed up for work, that they were worried about her, that they felt something was wrong. And things became a little bit more desperate after that. And we started checking around and couldn't find out anything, hadn't heard, nobody that we knew, her friends and all, hadn't heard from her. So when I got off and home, because I only worked till like 2 or 3 o'clock, when I got home, we called the sheriff's department, and they sent out a detective, and he talked to us, then he talked to the people where she was working, and then he came back, and something happened, and that report didn't get filed. But we called back the next day, and when we realized it hadn't got filed, they sent an actual detective out. The other one was
a deputy.
A deputy, yeah. The first one came out was a deputy, right? And but they sent out 2 detectives, and they did the same thing. They talked to us, they talked to the other people, back and forth, and then when they left, they went by the cash and carry, because that's where the people that she worked for said that she was headed when she left their house, and they found her van there, and in the van was Jeremy's diaper bag.
And for both of you, growing up, you were kids at the time, losing your sister in such a way and still not having answers, how has that affected you and your families over the years?
It's dramatically affected the way I parent. Dramatically. It was hard as a kid, losing someone like that, but it was especially hard watching what it does to your family.
It was everything was just
Chaotic.
Yeah, that's the word I was thinking too.
Extreme chaos.
And desperate. You're just looking and looking, and that's just becomes what your whole world is, and you're looking for any little piece of information you can find and following all the rabbit holes that you can, and you really can't, because you're, just a teenager, so you don't really know what's going on. So it was a lot.
I'd say the first year was almost hysterical,
Yeah.
for all of us. He felt obligated. He had to find her. He did it. We went out to look somewhere, and he was just like a machine. I've got to find her. I've got to find her.
He was 13.
Yeah, he was only 13, but he felt this responsibility. That's what I was trying to say. That he had to find her. That she was there, and he had to find her. And more physically is what I'm saying, than the others. But they had to go back to school, and she and Bonnie were going to the same school together. Now all of a sudden you have to go back to school, and everybody
asks, and everybody wants to know.
Which is, in some ways it's good, but ultimately it hurts too. You have to see it and talk about it. And everybody wants to know. And now people walk up to me and, oh, did you ever find your daughter? It's like, no.
All the regular things in life seem insignificant.
Yeah.
Insignificant.
Like every one of these as they turn 19, it's like, well, she never got there. What would she have been like if she got to be 19, 20, 21, in different things.
My older daughter is 18, and so I think about her actually a ton lately, because she's that same age that Bonnie was. She's actually older now because she's 18 and a half, but and she never got there. So every time she hit a milestone, that I would think of that and think of those things that Bonnie never got to do, so.
Normally I don't ask any questions, and I've known you guys a couple of years now, but I don't want to lighten the essence or the importance of you, Joe. You still feel obligated.
110%.
You're still exactly you were 30 years ago. You guys all are. And that's what the reason I wanted to do this with you guys. And I know the pain you guys go through constantly every day, but it's still an obligation. It's still a family hell that you guys are going through. Conducting cold case and homicide investigations, and then missing cases. It's, as you explained, it's 2 different worlds. People people don't get closure when someone's murdered, or even when there's an arrest made and someone goes to jail. It's never closure, but you know the bad guys somewhere.
Right.
Here, you guys live in, and I it breaks our hearts, and it's not our family, and so I'm saying this to you guys, but for the people that are gonna watch this, that the obligation, the stress, the purgatory hell that you guys go through is 30 years. It doesn't change. It's I've sat down with you guys at your house. Joe and I talk. I talk to Joe more than I talk to my own brother, and it's. I just want to stress the pain that you guys go through every day, and every holiday, every day you wake. I'm sure, Mom, every day you wake up and every day you go to sleep, and you guys too. And that's what I wanted to bring you guys in here for that reason. I know it's painful, but I want to stress that to the public, that it hasn't gone away. It will never go away.
No, Jeremy would have turned 30 in December. So, that's.
I can see the pain and what you call desperation to find those answers. And I think that's actually a good time to ask Dan maybe a question about that initial investigation. I mean, we hear them talking about their desperate search, everything that they were doing at the time to find Bonnie and to find Jeremy. What was our agency doing at the time? What were the measures being taken to find her?
Well, every missing case and every homicide case, it depends how the investigation leads. Initially, you get the deputy out there to take a report, and then it gets assigned to the detectives, and they'll exhaust every lead that they could possibly until it gets to that point where there's no more leads. And I'm not making excuses, but when everybody's interviewed and canvases are done, as they call them, surveys down here, leads get exhausted. That's the benefit of it, having a cold case at some point. The sheriff had the foresight to create a cold case unit in the last 3 years, and that's why I'm here. And as I tell Joe, the difference between a cold case unit and an active homicide unit, or an active, any unit that catches cases coming in on a daily basis, they have time constraints. Cold cases, the best part about cold cases, we have time. And time is the most important necessity in any investigation, especially I have time to talk to Joe. Every time Joe and I have talked and we want to meet, we meet. Nothing gets sidetracked. So that's the benefit of the more modern day. But back then, the agency did what they could at the time with what they had. They processed the crime scene 30 years ago. There was a lot less forensic technology. There was no video cameras. You go outside now, you walk a mile, you can find 100 video cameras on houses and on cell phones. We didn't have that. I mean, and to go back to Lithia, pre the northern and northwest crush of all the people coming here and making traffic, Lithia was country.
Yeah.
Fishhook wasn't there. Everybody knew each other. If you drove down a block, everybody knew your car, your truck. Everybody knew each other. So it was a small, tight-knit community. As Mom was talking about how she was horseback riding, you could ride your horse anywhere back then.
We rode all through what's
where
now Fishhook.
So think about what
All through the
Fishhook is
woods.
now. You
Yeah.
get killed by some
Yeah.
car or truck.
We rode horses
Yeah.
all through there.
That
So-
road didn't even exist.
So Lithia was a small Florida country town where everybody knew each other. And we haven't mentioned it yet, but Bonnie came into an inheritance at that time. She just moved out of the house. She just had Jeremy. She moved into a friend's house to help them with their children. She was only, 100 yards, 200 yards from you guys?
Yeah.
If that, you could throw
Yeah.
a baseball to it. So she was staying with neighbors, but the community was a tight-knit kind of family. I'm not saying these people were family, but they were family to her. And you guys saw her pretty much all the time anyway.
Yeah.
So she was living with this family. She came into a small inheritance, which most people would think was a small inheritance, but in a community where there is poverty, where there is money issues, and she was young and probably naive, and she told the world that she came into some money.
Yeah.
And I think the entire community knew that Bonnie had money. And
Yeah.
Bonnie was thinking about lending money to people, and she was supposed to meet somebody on the 28th of April, 1993. That's when it occurred. She left the residence where she was staying, which, like I said, was right around the corner from them. She was supposed to allegedly go to the cash and carry to meet with somebody to give money, and she took Jeremy with her, and they were never seen again. Her van was recovered 2 days later, and her property was in the car, and it was parked legally in a spot, and that was basically it. And there's been rumors for a very long time. We've had some tips, which in 2010 and 2019, we had an individual call in 2 different ways to the agency and give some pertinent information. And we would like to talk to that person again. It's very important because we think that information was actually legitimate, but we can't verify it. On my personal side, I believe that person is a good person who wants to help, but is a little nervous about putting himself forth to the police department, because people are nervous to give information sometimes to the police because they're afraid they're going to get in trouble. They're afraid they're going to get hurt. But that's, we keep people's anonymous when they do give us tips. But we think that person has very vital information to where Jeremy and Bonnie are.
So it's safe to say that we have a new lead in their disappearance that's been going on 30 years. Can you speak a little bit more about that?
I can't get into the details of the what he transpired to us, but as I've said every time I've talked to you guys, is that any bit of information is really good information, especially as the case gets older, when people stop to call in, when people move out of the neighborhood and don't think about it until they see something. And that's what we're hoping this does, is that it strikes a chord with people, especially this individual, to give us a call and talk to us and help us out and help the family out. I mean, I'm going to keep stressing, you stress, and you guys stress. It's 30 years. It'll be 31 years in 3.5 months.
Yeah.
31 years is a lifetime. It's a lifetime of hell. And there's no other word to say it. It's hell.
I'd like to express this about the family. Is like you said, sometimes there's There's just no closure. The only closure you get is knowing there will be no closure. But my family is not specifically out for vengeance or justice. What we would really like is to have their bodies in a grave and to have a place to mourn. And
To know where they are.
to know where they are, you know, and even if we just know where they are, that's something. You know what I mean? And maybe there's answers, maybe there's not, but we're not out for vengeance. So, you know, you don't have to be scared to help. If anybody that has information, we're so grateful, and we really need your help.
For 30 years, you think somebody somewhere knows something. And so you're just hoping that either they didn't know they knew something and something will, hey, that makes sense, and tell that information, or they'll just come forward and tell what they know. But somebody knows something. So.
I also wanted to say that, like, my Bonnie's father's not here. He's, living, but he's not here with us today. But you ask how it affects people, and he has come to the point where to talk about this, to see the things, it just tears him up so bad that he can't hardly deal with it now. He did a huge amount of talking to people, going in different places. He tried very hard in the first many years on his own to see what he could find and all, and it was
Breaks him physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
He's not doing well with it, and I'd really like to, like I say, have some kind of answers for him as he's getting older and more frail. And he almost had a heart attack the last time we were talking about it. He had to take what is that, nitro pills in the middle of it.
You ask, how it affects a family. In the beginning, it was just us adults, my husband and myself, her dad and myself. But now over the years, I find, we're getting old. He's closer to 80. I'm just into the 70s, but we're not young people anymore. And the children are taking over, leading, talking to the investigators and doing all the things now. And I would so like to know what happens in my lifetime. But it's a hard thing. It's a hard legacy to leave to your kids, that this is their job now. They have to take over and do this. And it just comes more and more hard as a mom. It's hard to keep up with I didn't but I have a whole investigation file of ourselves, where we've called people, where we've done this, who did she know at the time, who did that person know at the time, and that's one of our hobbies, is looking for Bonnie, looking for answers, looking for clues. So, but unfortunately, like I said, now the kids are having to take over.
And, hearing this potential lead, hearing that you might be finding that closure, what does that kind of feel like mean to you? What maybe words of advice or encouragement would you give to other families that are still searching?
Keep looking. Don't give up.
Yeah.
Focus on the positives of it, not the negative, because they will eat you alive. How you treat the insignificant parts that happen. Family member says this that frustrates you, it doesn't matter. It's not real. What's really real is, how you treat them and how you behave with your children, with your brothers, your sisters, mother, father. A lot of times you don't think about it in the now as you're emotional or have an ego or something, and those things really don't matter. And focus on what's there and not what's, definitely still look for your people, but we have an entire family, and they're still there. And,
we
don't get stuck in
try to balance between
all of
not
the
giving
insanity
up.
of the nightmare.
Yeah, keep looking, but don't lose what you have right now.
No, God tells you to just live for today, because you don't know what tomorrow's going to bring. And, we have that faith that someday, no matter what, we're going to see Bonnie and Jeremy, and someday we'll be with them. But I cherish the other grandchildren and children, because I know, I might not see them tomorrow. Something could happen, and which is a thought that terrifies me. But we try to get through it, and as with faith and our family.
Well, I want to thank all of you for sitting down and sharing their story and sharing your vulnerability, discussing all of this. Was there anything else you wanted to share, Dan?
No, I want them to have the last word. It's their family. It's what they're going through.
I don't know, maybe to the fella that called that tip in, we really need your help. We really hope that you can call back in and help our family and maybe help us find some answers.
These cases aren't just stories, they're real lives and real people. Your voice could be the missing piece in this puzzle. If you have information on this case or any other, please contact the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office at 813-247-8200. To submit a tip anonymously, call Crime Stoppers of Tampa Bay. Join us next time as we continue our journey to uncover the truth and bring these families the closure they have been waiting for. Until then, stay vigilant and keep seeking justice for these families. Unfinished business.